Hi, hello, namaste. I'm Suresh. I'm colleague of Pushkar. Me, Pushkar, and then Ruchika. We were working at Dikians on this blockchain from past few months. And then, yeah, it was so hard for us to understand all the concepts of blockchain and everything. So we thought of the community might also be feeling very little tricky and then hard to understand all the stuff. So yeah, just an idea that we got into our mind that why can't we create the content? Why can't we explain it to the community in a very easy way, right? That is the point where we started with all these video series, articles, blogs, and everything. So as a part of the same, we have covered the Solidity series. We have covered blockchain and the concepts around the ecosystem. Now, in the previous video, that's the sample smart contract that Pushkar has explained you. Okay, this is a continuation to the same. Now, he has explained you the entire test cases, how to write the smart contract. Okay, with the very basic one he has started with, right? Now, he has also deployed in the local test network where it has created Ethereum network within your system. Right now, I'll explain you first how we deploy to the test networks, any private test networks, and to how we deploy to the main network. Okay, using the same configurations and everything that he has done. Now, so you can see it, right? So in hardhat.config, this is the file that we need to add all our private network configurations. It can be private test network or it can be private main network as well. So now we need to just change these configurations here. I'm going to trim everything which is not required for us. Okay, so I've trimmed everything. Now what we have to add a network within the export here because it's a private network, so we have to add the network and all the configurations related to the network. Now to deploy in any of the private network or in the main net, we must have the private key of our wallet. That is one requirement. And the second requirement is basically we need to have the either Infura or Alchemy, the third-party providers. Using the third-party providers, we will deploy it to the networks. Now, I've just returned all these configurations and the file. I mean, what do we say? The repo as well. So, which all the details that we were speaking and then we were talking in the videos is available in the GitHub. So you can see it here. So yeah. So just to make the job easy, I'm just copy pasting those configurations here instead of typing all the stuff. So here we go. So I've just copied Rinky by network configurations. Similarly, we can add to Robston, we can add to the main network. Okay, we can just, if suppose we wanted to add it to main network, we'll type main and then we'll add the URL that is needed and then we'll add the account. So account is basically your wallet account, wallet that should have some ETH where that will be used at the time of deployment. In your local computer, when Pushkar is deploying, it actually took the local ETH, which is a fake ETH. Now, in order to deploy to any of the private networks, you must have a real ETH. Okay, so that will be taken from this wallet, your accounts, where we will use your private key programmatically in order to take out the money. Okay, which we call it as gas fee. So yeah, that's how we add it for main or any of the test networks. Now we see we need a Infra API key and we need the private private key of your wallet, which will be there in the browser. I'm using MetaMask here and then I'm using Infra, and you can also use Alchemy if you want. Okay, so I will use my test credentials here in order to deploy, where I will have all the test API key and then the wallet configurations which are test for now. Okay, so that even if you know, there won't be any problem. So I copy my API key and then I copy my wallet private key here. Okay, here we go. The configurations are now completed. It's as simple as we drinking a cup of coffee. Now, with just one simple command, we can deploy this to any of the private networks. I'm using Rinkiby here, so I'll be deploying it to the Rinkiby. Okay, what I need to do, so as Pushkar mentioned in the previous video, so we are doing configurations in the scripts, right? Similarly, now we're gonna add one more line for Rinkiby. Okay, so the network instead of localhost, we'll change it to Rinkiby. Okay, that's it. rest all configurations were as it is. We don't need to change not even one line. Okay, so now we will just simply go to our terminal where we have this, and we will do npm run build to see if any of the conflicts that we have in the contract. Okay, because it was already compiled and then tested properly, so I assume that there's no conflicts. However, I ran it and then there's no conflicts we got. Now I'll run npm run deploy to rinky deploy colon rinky. Okay, we'll see the command here, deploy colon rinky, right? I'll just copy and then paste exactly the same to avoid the spell mistakes. Okay, now it is deploying. You can see it very clearly what file it is deploying. Also, it is deploying under scripts counter.js, where our deployment code was pre-written by Pushkar. Now, yeah, it takes little time because it has to validate the wallet and it has to validate the ETH, and then the transaction has to be mined. So, yeah, here we go. We deployed it and we got the address of the contract. All right. So now let's go ahead and then search this address in the public website. Public website as in we have deployed it to the private network, which is live. We can access anywhere, right? So rinky scan. So this rinky.etherscan.io is the official website of it. We can search any of the addresses here. I'm searching with my contract address that we got, just we deployed. So it is loading. Here we go. We got the contract address and all the details. So there's one transaction that happened, which is a contract creation call. Okay, because we have not utilized this anywhere, and then we have not did any of the transactions, right? So I just had one transaction, which is a contract creation call. Now let's utilize this address and then integrate it in the front end. I'll keep this page open so that we can copy this address later on. Now that's it on the deployment side. Now let's go ahead, utilize this deployed deployed address that we got, and then use that on the front end, and let's see how we can integrate. Now I've already did npm create React app because it usually takes some time in order to install all the dependencies. So I just did it for you just to make the things quicker. So I got this Maya project. So I'm going to rename it to frontend. Okay, and then I'm going to copy it and then drop it in, copy the entire folder. So I'm just copying the entire folder to the first smart contract. Okay, since we have all the node modules, it takes little time in order to copy everything. So that's why we see this loader. Let it come back and then we'll continue with the changes. So I have the MetaMask here, and I'll just log into the MetaMask very quickly. So if you see here, I've logged in. I have one test network and I have the real account as well. I have some ETH in both of them. Let's utilize the test network for all our for the video thing. Okay, all right, here we go. We got all the stuff. Now see reporting. Let's don't care about all the things, because our main focus is how do we connect to the Web3 using wallet, and how do we do the transactions, how do we call the backend methods. Okay, so I'm going to change the UI that we have. Under app.js, I'm going to change the UI with the different one. Okay, here we go. So yeah, so you can see there's a counter variable that we have, and then there's an increment count method which increments the variable, which is right now happening locally. So I have two classes where, so I'm gonna add what do we say, the CSS file for it. Okay, app.css, which is already added. I'm going to rename it so that we'll have our code. So just a second while I'm copying from the other projects. Okay, let's copy it from here. So front end src, we have styles.css. I'm going to copy all of this. Okay, I'm going to paste it by creating a styles.css. Okay, I can copy in app.css as well, but we don't want to disturb anything. So we'll just import this styles.css. Okay, so all our styles were also there. Let's run our program. Cd sorry, we have already opened it, right? So this is front end. Let's go to the front end, npm install, and then we'll run it. Npm start will do that. Okay, so we have updated where the UI is basically we have the plus button and then we have the increment count. Okay, this is the count that we have. By default, we initialize it to 0. Now this is the basic UI that you will find it from all the repos. I mean, you can find it from the repo that we have over here, or you can find it from the internet as well. Now this is not our main focus, right? So the main focus is to connect to the wallet, and then get the address and all the account balances, and then using that wallet provider, we'll just call the methods that we have returned in the smart contract. That's the main focus, right? So now let's go ahead and then start connecting to the wallet. Okay, just to connect to the wallet, we have a very simple method that I'm gonna copy from the other project that we wrote, and then here we are basically using ethers as a plugin. You can see it here. So basically useFX is one that we'll be needing, so we'll import it from the React components, and then so we have the changed chain is basically we'll be having a lot of accounts, right? Accounts as in private networks like Rinkeby, Robston, and then Coven, and then we have mainnet. So each network has its own chain ID. When that network changes from the browser, I can change the network from here, right? So if you see here, I can change it from Rinkeby to Coven or Mumbai test network, anything. So when that gets changed, my listener will listen to it and it reloads the window. So when it reloads, this check wallet will be called it again, right? So at the same time, account is changed. I've shown you have two accounts. One is the test network, test account, and then one is the real account. So even when I change my account, then it gets listened and then calls this method again back. So what this is our main method, what exactly this does is, let's go deep into it. Now Ethereum is the object that we have from the window object, the global object that we have in the JS. Everyone knows that window is a global object. Document is also one of the global objects. Now using that Ethereum, I'll check whether my wallet provider is installed or not. Okay, so if it is not installed, I'll just throw an error. Here I'm just using an alert because I've not created too many components on the UI. So I'm just using the JavaScript alert method to let them know that you have not installed anything. Now, so if it's already installed, then it goes to the next steps, right? So we have two ways of checking whether the MetaMask is installed or not. Okay, because as I said, I'm going to use the MetaMask in this example. Okay, you can also use, if you want, you can use the other providers, and then there's a way, the way will be a little different. So MetaMask is widely being used, so I just started using that. So yeah, so Ethereum.enabled is one way to check whether MetaMask is installed on the browser or not. Okay, so if it is not installed, it throws error, so that it breaks from there, and then it won't proceed to the next levels, next lines of the code. So it is going to be deprecated soon. So that's why it came up with new RPC, ETH request accounts. If this gives you the accounts, which means the MetaMask is installed. If it is not, it is not installed. So just to show you, there's one more short way to do that. So I just added both the lines. Yeah. Now this accounts, if I already had this MetaMask, right? So it won't give me error. Now I need to switch it to my chain ID, right? I've mentioned what is chain ID is. We have a lot of other networks, and then each network has its own chain ID. That is a unique ID that we'll have. We'll have to switch that chain ID. So I need to change it to my chain ID, and I also need to change it to my account, whatever the account that I had. So now, so the method, this is the wallet switch Ethereum chain is the RPC that we use. RPC as in it's one of the API calls. We will get to know about the RPCs in later videos that we do. Okay, so we'll change the chain ID because we have deployed to Rinkeby, right? So I have to change it to Rinkeby. Rinkby's chain ID is 4, whereas the mainnet is 0. And then for other test networks, we have different chain IDs, which we'll get from the Google. Google directly gives as a first result. Yeah. Now I'm just consoling them to see if they've been properly connected and we got the accounts or not. So we are storing that account ID also in the local storage if we wanted to utilize it anyway. So we will do that. So if at any point of time, if we get the error, it will be throwing the error and then it won't be connected. So all the operations won't be going here. So this is how we connect to the wallet provider. Now what's next? So we have connected, we have created the basic UI. We have connected to the wallet provider. Now this is the time that we call the methods that we have returned in our first smart contract, right? So we utilize those methods, and we, instead of using this local variable, we have to directly utilize that the method, I mean the values that we are getting from the decentralized smart contract that we have created, right? So that is our next step. So now I'm going to